For years, Syria endures the devastating effects of a prolonged civil war, torn apart by competing forces and the ambitions of external powers seeking to impose their agendas. The conflict has caused a devastating humanitarian crisis with profound and far-reaching consequences. It led to the displacement of millions of people, extensive loss of life, and widespread destruction across the country. On December 8, 2024, armed rebels took the Syrian city of Damascus, forcing longtime ruler President Bashar al-Assad to flee the country. Following the collapse of the Assad regime, a genuine hope for peace emerged. Bordering Turkiye demonstrated a long-standing commitment to stabilizing Syria and supporting its recovery, especially given the complex political, humanitarian and security challenges in the region. Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan vowed to uphold Syria's territorial integrity as he reaffirmed a new era has begun, both in the country and in the region. He emphasized Turkiye's support for Syria in its efforts to prevent destabilization, cautioning that Ankara would act swiftly against any perceived threats. Earlier this week, French President Emmanuel Macron stated that Paris would not abandon the Syrian Democratic Forces, which has been one of the many factions involved in Syria's 13-year-long civil war. Turkey has strongly rejected the proposal to deploy French troops along the Syrian border.
Turkish Foreign Minister Hakan Fidan despised actually the French requests without telling its name, and he mentioned them as a small European countries who follow the US, but not without mentioning their name. The thing is, of course, now Syria is a perfect place for those countries who want to have an influence over them. And as a country which has a history, a colonial history in Syria, France wouldn't want to miss such an opportunity, especially considering US disengagement.
While publicly claiming to avoid direct military involvement, France has been deeply embedded in Syria for years, particularly in Kurdish-controlled areas in the northeast. Through its support for the Syrian Democratic Forces, France has been backing a group tied to the PKK.
It's important to recognize that France's statements with regard to sending troops to Syria are more rhetoric than they are fact. France already has troops in Syria. France has already been separating the ethnocentric separatists in Syria. It's important to understand that the SDF is a fiction actually created by the United States, supported by France, but it's actually controlled by YPG, PKK terrorists. Just as Armenia and others had created a fiction of Artsakhians, there's a fiction of this Kurdish group that is really nothing but a terrorist group.
The presence of France in Syria was clearly felt throughout the years of the war. A French cement company, Lafarge, was admitted to making millions of dollars of payments that supported ISIS and another terrorist organization as part of an effort to maintain its operation in Syria as the civil war escalated. Lafarge and its subsidiary Lafarge Cement Syria conspired to encourage ISIS to act in ways that would benefit their security and economic interests, according to court documents. The companies paid around $5.92 million to terrorist groups through intermediaries. After Lafarge evacuated its cement plant in 2014, ISIS seized control and sold the cement for about $3.2 million, as reported by the Justice Department.
We know that France at one time colonized Syria. And when France did that, it didn't do so with good intentions of rebuilding Syria or giving Syrians freedom. In fact, what they did is they brought mercenaries from Sierra Leone to actually kill Syrians and civilize Syrians. The fact is that France has always had bad intentions in Syria, and it continues with those bad intentions to keep Syria divided so that there is a weak Middle East, so that it can have its own control, just as it has in Africa and throughout the Middle East and elsewhere.
Experts agree that France might try to use its influence in Armenia to advance its interest in Syria, where a large Armenian community lives. The country also has local branches of traditional Armenian parties, such as Dashnak Tutun and Hun Chakan, also operate in the country. For many years, Yerevan actively supported the regime of Bashar al-Assad. It's enough to recall how back in 2009, during the visit of the Syrian president to Armenia, Catholicos of all Armenian Karagin II presented him with the highest award of the Armenian Church, the Cross of Saint.
We know that Armenia is very malleable or manipulated by France. And we know that Armenia backed Assad. And we know that France preferred to keep Assad so that it could have a weak Syria. So there's certainly every reason to believe that France will continue to use Armenia as a tool to undermine Syria. Because although France publicly held a position that it wanted to bring democracy to Syria, it actually acted very much to the contrary.
Turkiye, as a neighboring country of Syria, has been involved in this civil war since the beginning due to its long border, security concerns, and the large number of refugees. Ankara has emerged as a winner in Syria, but now using its influence to help build peace. The experts predict that in the end, Paris will not send its troops to Syria, realizing that this will lead to a new escalation and direct confrontation between France and Turkey, and even the United States of America.
I don't think such a thing can happen without U.S. approval. The thing is, can U.S. approve such a request? Yes, they can, because as long as it's not U.S. military, Trump wouldn't mind much about who is there. But if it is going to create a new tension, as considering both parties are NATO allies, and considering like U.S. new administration is not favoring France either.
Official sources have reported that the Syrian ministers of Foreign Affairs and Defense, as well as the head of intelligence, are said to make an official visit to Ankara. This visit marks the beginning of a new chapter in the relations between Turkey and Syria, which could become a significant step toward the long-awaited peace. It's clear that France has one goal: fragmenting Syria. Despite the ongoing attempts by external actors to interfere in Syria's internal affairs, the focus is now on the potential to achieve stability and security in the region through dialogue and cooperation between neighboring countries.